Hi, welcome to the WADT podcast. Violence is everywhere. It's in cities and on the streets. It is brought to our homes through movies and even video games. Most concerning is that it is happening at home in the form of domestic violence. Thankfully, there are organizations like Pave, Pave, that help those who use violence against a family member, be it a spouse or a child. And today we are fortunate to have as our guests two gentlemen, Saravanan Krishnan and Hewlett Chu, who are social workers at Pave, and we will be discussing about domestic violence and why men particularly use violence. Hello, Sarah and Hewlett. How are you guys?
Hi, Hafiz and Paksan. Doing good. Good afternoon to both of you.
Good
Hi.
afternoon.
Yeah, nice to have two men and us two co-hosts together, two guests and two co-hosts. To I think it's not common. I think never we had four people on
No,
a
we have never
podcast.
had two guests at the same time. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a privilege that both of you
It's
today.
an
There
honor
must
to be
the
here.
issue. Yeah, the issue must be quite serious that we need two-person to talk to us about this. So maybe Sarah or Hewlett, either one of you, tell us what work does PAVE do? Yeah.
Yeah. So Pave is a specialist agency for individual and family protection. We provide a spectrum of support services for people and for families who are experiencing or who have experienced family violence. So these include attending to phone calls and walk-ins from people who are inquiring about situations of violence that they're experiencing, assisting those requiring protection to apply for a personal protection order, PPO, providing voluntary and mandatory counseling programs for survivors of violence, persons who abuse, and the vulnerable children to help them to deal with their experiences of violence. And also the voluntary or mandatory counseling program, it can be done either via individual sessions or group sessions. So upon completion of the violence programs, the post-violence programs are offered to help to rebuild the marital and the family relationships.
I see. So, I mean, you have a quite a spectrum of services. You know, you talk about you deal with not only adults, right? You also deal with children, right, who are also
Mm.
affected in the ecosystem of violence. So today, actually, we want to talk particularly about men, all right? And how does I mean men fare in this area? I mean, the majority of perpetrators men, especially in family violence, and if so, what is the impact upon the family? Yeah.
Maybe
Sure.
before we get into that, so how do these men come to you? Um, are they referred? Are they mandated? Or do they just, you know, voluntarily come to you?
Yeah. These men can come from various sources. Lah. Some of them, they call us on their own accord. They can be referred by the Family Justice Court. They can be referred by hospitals, police, or even child protective services.
Okay. Wow. All right. So when they come to you, how do you help them? So I mean, in probably most of the cases, it's either some form of domestic violence, whether it's against a spouse or against a child.
Mhm.
Um, what do you do to help them? Do you have a certain program? And what's the process like? If you can just give us an overview.
Sure, sure. I think when we are talking about helping these men, we have to be very clear about our mindset, lah. Okay. Rather than seeing help as an end goal, we look at it as part of a journey, okay, and a partnership to help these men take a responsibility for the use of violence, okay, and to look into alternatives, to look into other ways in reducing conflicts. Okay, you may have noticed that when we talk about violence, right, or about men who use violence, we don't use the word perpetrators or batterers. Okay, we want to be very respectful towards these men. We are not looking at the person's character. We are looking at the person's behavior. We want to be very clear on that. Okay, it is this part, the unhelpful behavior, that we are targeting. Okay, and we do this through individual and group work, either way. Okay, so we have a course of program that can be 12 sessions or more lah. Okay, so our first step is to give them that platform to openly talk about what did not go well, okay, particularly about their own use of violence. Okay, and then after they talk about their story, what exactly happened, and then the next step is to help them to take responsibility for the use of violence. Okay, and then once they take responsibility, they recognize that, hey, this is not helpful for me and for my family. Then the third step will also be to to help them to develop effective and more concrete coping mechanisms that is working for them. And of course, lastly, is the skills on how to deal with conflicts when they arise. But I'm saying phases and steps, right? It does not go that way. It is not linear. It is very dynamic. But generally, these are the processes involved in helping men, lah, or rather say, journeying with these men in facilitating change.
So if you don't call them perpetrators, what do you call them?
Person who use violence or person who abuse. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting, right? I mean, you focus on the behavior, as you said. So the other one is just a step back. You're talking about some of them come in mandatory due to instruction and given by authorities. The other one, they may come in voluntary. So are there more people who come voluntarily nowadays?
Okay, I would say that in the last few years, there's an increase lah, of people coming in voluntarily. We see men who call us. Okay, they say, hey, they have actually slipped, they've used violence, and they want to put a stop to their behaviors. They want to save the relationship. Okay, they want to do better for their family. So it is. We see a increase, and this is good news, and we want to welcome this lah. It shows that you are noticing and you are aware that something is not right, and you are taking responsibility for it, and you want to do something different for the family and for yourself.
Wow, that's good news for masculinity.
The ability to accept that you have something to learn and
That's
to
right.
change.
That's
Yeah.
right. We are not, we don't have to be like that all the time, being harmful. And I think that's what the toxic masculinity, that toxic masculinity actually means, that it is harmful, to both parties, to other people around that man and that man in himself. Yeah. So it doesn't make sense. I mean, if you really think about it, it doesn't make sense to continue down that path, to be harmful, to be toxic to others as well as to yourself. So, wow, good news. We are making progress. Hewlett, what's your experience? How long have you been doing this, and what's your experience like?
Well, I've been with Pave for about 3 years, and I think my experience in working with Pave or with the men in Pave, I think it has been really quite encouraging. Some of the men that they come in, they do share their own fair share of struggles, and it's really been wonderful to see them. Some really from the start taking responsibility for their actions, learning to recognize how some of their behaviors have hurt their partners, hurt their family, and taking the step to learn new ways of developing ways of managing conflict, of relating with their family members. Yeah, I think it has really been quite an honor and a privilege to be working with these men. As Sarah said, partnering with them.
New Entity is a branding company. They are the ones helping to create a brand for WADT and digital media for all our social media platforms. We will not hesitate to recommend New Entity to anyone, whether you are running a business or a non-profit or starting a blog or podcast just like us. Its founder, Firdaus Amza, was on our podcast a few weeks back, and here's what he said about business and branding.
I like to compare it to business. It's as if it's two sides of the same coin: business and branding. You grow your business, you grow your brand at the same time. If you neglect your brand, your business will grow, but you have the flip side, which is not taken care of, and people will see it, and you are going to lose a lot of opportunity because you're not able to make the connection.
Do you have any good stories? No names, needed here, but
Success
success stories. Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of success stories. Lah. I don't know which one to share in particular, but maybe, okay, one, let me think. Okay, maybe I can share this story. Lah. This man, okay, he came in voluntarily. Okay, he called us and said that, he had used violence on his wife, and, he wanted to really change. And he came for our individual session. So about one or two sessions later, I thought, hey, this guy is a good candidate for a group program, okay, where you can get support from other men as well and share his experiences. And initially, he was a bit hesitant because you're going to talk about this to other men. But then he said, okay, never mind, I'll come and see how does it go in the first session. He came for the first session, and then he liked it. He liked that kind of atmosphere where he is actually talking very openly. Okay, and also you don't get judged for what he has done. Okay, this is a very honest and open platform, but also a very respectful platform. So after going through the group program, he noticed, okay, what are his own warning signs, okay, that leads to him exploding or using violence. And after learning about it, he managed to stay away from violence for quite some time. And even now and then he will give us a ring, lah, okay, to say that he's doing good. And he also came back as an ambassador to Pave. So I would say that somebody who would develop a new identity for himself. A person who used violence is now a respectful person, somebody who is being respected by the family and also by the community. So I would say that this is a very big change for him, lah. And also it's a privilege for an honor, okay, for like what Hewlett said, for us to work with him and to see him, blossoming.
Wow. I think to have these kind of stories, and you said many of them, is really encouraging, despite the challenge if the kind of work that you all do. And who best to share their stories and lessons than the person who have gone through it themselves to another person who's going through. So you were saying just now that what if, let's say, some of them resort back to abuse again? How do you help such cases?
Yeah, I mean, some may and some may not, lah. But most of the men, when we work with, okay, if something is not going well, they will tell us. They will tell us that tension is actually building up. Okay, things are not going well, and then we sit down with them to see, okay, what is the next step? What can they do to make sure that they de-escalate? Okay, and then they don't go back to their old ways. And we also have men who may come back to us 6 months down the road, say, hey, Sarah or Hewlett, yeah, violence happened again, lah. Yes, we acknowledge that there was a slip, but we also want to look at what worked for them. In these 6 months, something must have really worked for them to keep them away from using violence. So we sit down and process with them on what worked for them, and we try to build on that and strengthen it before talking about, okay, how to prevent another escalation or another violence in future.
Hey listeners, Pax and I are very excited to tell you about something new that's happening. We have just started a book club and would like you to join us. There are vast amounts of knowledge and wisdom in books that are readily accessible to everyone. Reading is also a way to learn from experts in various fields. Not a reader? No problem. Follow our podcast and listen to the episode where Pax and I discuss and summarize a book or a portion of a book. We will use that as the starting point for our book club discussion. We will meet on the first Wednesday of every month. Go to our Instagram and Facebook pages to find out how to join. We'll see you there. And now, back to the podcast.
Besides calling your organization, and there are other organizations they can also reach out to. How do they come forward if they need help, for example?
Okay. There are 3 family violence specialist centers in Singapore. Pave is one of them. And there are also family service centers in Singapore. In fact, every area, there will be one family service center. They can give them a call or they can go down there directly to share with them their issues or struggles, okay, or what they are experiencing. And then these family service centers will be able to help them. And if need be, they can refer them to family violence specialist centers like us. Yeah.
Okay.
And if they need any other support or resources, they can also do that. The family service center can link them. And I mean, they can also call Pave directly. Okay, they call us or any of the family violence specialist center. We will hear the story and then see how best we can support them.
Yeah.
So,
And
so one of the
also, honestly, in this internet age, right, there are a number of clients who call in to us. When we ask them, how do you find out about Pave? They say, oh, I just Googled and then I search family violence, right? So actually, Google is quite a powerful tool, right? The internet is a powerful tool. As long as you search for how do I get help for family violence in Singapore, they will be able to, there are numbers that they can call, that they can seek for help. And one of those numbers is the National Anti-Violence Helpline, right, which is operated by MSF in conjunction with some of the other non-profits in Singapore. And there's a 24-hour hotline, right, dedicated to providing support to people who call in.
So that number is 1-800-777-0000, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay. So you're talking about people who can just go down to the family service center, which is around the corner or in their estate, even if they want to seek help. But what about some men or anyone would be worried about confidentiality, because this is something that nobody wants to tell other people. And how do you assure them that you guys are professional, you have processes in place such that they not worry, and you are in safe hands, and you are your privacy is being guarded, and so on and so forth.
I think the confidentiality is our main business. Okay. We in Singapore, there's even a law, Personal Data Protection Act. So we don't go around sharing with people about the details, and we can't. It's very professional, and whatever that is discussed kept within the 4 walls. Of course, there are also exceptions when somebody wants to harm themselves. When they say they're going to harm somebody, then we cannot keep quiet. We need to activate the resources to help this man or to save this man. Other than that, we keep it very confidential. Their story stays within the 4 walls.
Because why I asked this, because I was just attending a violence for children, all right, conference, and one of the issue is one of the approaches that is being suggested is not just looking in from the family perspective or even the school perspective, but community perspective. Today is unlike last time where we are more open, right? We live in community. Well, today people seem to live on their own. They want privacy. So again, we also need to know that the neighbors will hear. Sometimes if you fight or there is a bit of noise, okay. But sometimes we don't want to know, about what's happening to our neighbor, right, for the fear of infringing the privacy and so on and so forth. But yet, community is, I believe, part of this whole process of helping people who are in facing these issues. What do you think about that? Yeah.
You're right, Afis. You were talking about children, correct? So especially when it comes to children, right? The community is like the kampong that keeps a lookout for the children's safety and well-being. Yeah. Anybody who is concerned about a particular family going through distress or children getting abused can approach us, and we will do the necessary. Of course, if it's a very dangerous kind of situation, then it's best to call the police. They are the first line of support. And then the police will be able to link them up to the necessary resources, including Pave. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe the police are also trained, right, to see whether this issue is a criminal issue or not, right? It's a domestic issue. I'm sure they are.
Yeah. So they will be able to assess and then to make the link.
See. I see.
All right, let's get to the root of it. And let's talk about what causes men to be violent or to use violence. What do you think? If I ask you to, tell me the top 3 reasons why men are violent or why men resort to violence, what would you say are the top 3?
Well, family violence and intimate partner violence is really a very complex issue. And I think if you were to say like top 3, there's no real one way of explaining it. Put it simply, people abuse others because they think they can, especially when there are no consequences. It's a case of bullying the bullyable, right? These really may be influenced by multiple different factors, such as having witnessed or experienced violence growing up, having rigid gender role beliefs, and using a combination of physical, emotional, sexual abuse to gain that power and control over their family members. And sometimes people also have other life stressors that can exacerbate these already stressful situations, just kind of make them worse. Yeah.
Okay,
But
so
perhaps
because they think they can. All right. Yep. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps I can share with you, right, some of the things that while we may not be able to kind of share like what exactly it is, because it's different from every case, right? But sometimes when men come in and we talk with them about their violence, right? We talk with them about what they have done before. Some of the things that they think about their actions, right, comes out, right, and then they share with us. So some of them men come in saying, "Hey, she provoked me. I had no choice but to do that so that she will stop." Right? Others say that, "Oh, I don't know what happened. Right? I just do my talk. It happened so quickly." Right? And that suggests that he had no control. And others might say, "Hey, it's like this in my own family growing up," which suggests that maybe they had learned their behavior from their parents. Right? But the truth is that violence is a choice. The hands, legs, mouth, all ours. Right? We can choose our actions. So how do we explain why we don't hit out at our boss, at our friends, our colleagues when we're upset with them, but we use violence against our own family? Violence is also not about losing control, but about gaining control. Right? Sometimes really
Or
violence can be very powerful.
exerting that power and authority, especially in a relationship where there's a power differential, like husband and wife or father and children. It's easier, like what you said, you won't act out against your boss, right? Although
That's
there
right.
are probably some extreme cases where they do, and that's, I guess, they are just flying off the handle and going to a rage, but consciously, I don't think you would do that unless you think your job is expendable.
Yeah, furthermore, it's not just a one-off usually, right? These cases are usually repeated. It becomes normalized and desensitized, right?
Yeah.
Both by the person who commit the violence and those who are the victims.
Yeah, that's right. It can be a very powerful way of getting, when we use violence, it can be a very powerful way of getting people to do things our way. Right? And when that happens, then there can be a pattern, right? Where we ourselves learn that, hey, I can do things this way, right? Then it becomes a pattern, right? So it becomes about gaining control, right? But at the end of the day, like we said, it's a choice, right? And sometimes we need to be helped to recognize that these things are bad choices, right? It's not that we have no control, right? But we are making a choice day by day, and making that breaking away from the choices that we have made in the past. I think it's something that's difficult to do. And that's why we journey alongside our men to support them in this.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe when you talk about choice, right, it's usually, I mean, is they choose to behave in a certain way. It's also due to their belief, and what drives them deep inside. Sometimes they don't realize it's subconscious, right? So that itself, you say, it will take months, sometimes years, for people to break that habit, by changing their beliefs and assuring themselves that it's possible. Yeah, so that process itself, as you said, need to be side by side with them. And I think both of you did mention the earlier part, about it's a partnership, right? And the way you describe
Yeah,
your relationship with your clients is like a friend, they're also willing to share, immediately call you, when they need help. Yeah. So instead of calling other friends that probably may not be professionally trained, they call you, what best, right? An option to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
Wonderful.
when we talk about partnership, right, we also want to recognize that the clients are the masters of their own lives. Yeah.
Yeah, it's them
So,
who will change, right? Not you forcing
yes,
change to them.
yes,
That's the most
that's right.
sustainable way of change, correct?
true, true. We are facilitators. Yeah.
Mm.
That's right.
I used to be a very bad-tempered person, and
I'm surprised.
when it
Watson,
comes to,
nowadays
oh
you're
yes,
so
I
calm.
was a very bad-tempered person. In primary school, I beat up my best friend, and he cried and cried and cried. Yeah, so that was the only time I beat up somebody, to be honest. But as a parent, I think I probably have done certain things that by today's standard it would be classified as child abuse. Okay. So it took me many years to come to a realization and conclusion that no one can make me angry except myself.
Mm.
All right, because like you say, anger is a choice, violence is a choice. How you express that anger is a choice. You can either do it the healthy way, or you can do it, the harmful way, that breaks relationships, and that hurts people and their emotions as well. Yeah, maybe even sometimes more than that. Yeah.
Mm.
So it takes time. For me, it took many, many, many years, unfortunately. But today, I always repeat that no one can make you angry unless you choose to be angry. And I guess the reason that someone might choose to use anger or choose to be angry is they want to use it for a purpose, to either just to express, I'm not happy, or even to manipulate, for example, to take control of people or situation. So the anger is a very powerful force because it can be fearful. Again, if there's a power differential, it comes in very handy. Yeah, but I guess education is needed to help people understand, well, there are other ways, to
Mm.
persuade people to do things differently, and so relationships can be maintained. So am I right to say that such violent behavior, aggressive and violent behavior, cannot be attributed to testosterone?
Though it
I'm
helps.
not so sure about that. I'm not so sure about testosterone. But I
No,
think
we're
what,
just looking for an excuse, right?
yeah, I think it really boils down to it being a choice. I think, as you say, right, you can only choose. I mean, maybe definitely what we can do is we can choose how we express our emotions, our anger. And I think, like you said, really, even as we said earlier, that violence is learned, is something that we have learned from somewhere, right? Various influences. But what we learn, we can unlearn, and we can learn new ways of doing things, much better ways of doing things, as we have seen in many of our clients. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes, we learn and then we unlearn and then we relearn.
Yep.
Life is like that.
Yeah, I mean, my generation probably have seen, our parents, having a cane or having anything within their reach, to discipline children is normal, right? But today,
Mm.
it's not accepted, right? At the same time, in this so-called different practices, people are probably still think that it's okay to physically punish, and they get carried away, because anger plus physical, becomes violence and hurt,
Mm.
causing hurt to children, especially when they are vulnerable or people who are less powerful than us. And um, and and that cycle of watching violence, right? Is not only watching other people doing violence, be it our family members or people who are friends, but also in the media, right? Because today, I think, I mean, I cannot but always worried about how my children see. I mean, if they're young, they're very impressionable, and when they see violence in the media, and today media, don't talk about TV, right? It's so open, and how do we help manage? how do parents manage this kind of negative effects on children watching violence in the media? Do you have any tips? Yeah.
Maybe we should ask Parkson, the one who has more experience dealing as a parent. Dealing as a parent.
And Hewlett,
You see,
as a
the rank of
soon-to-be
our the
parent.
rank of our hair already show.
Oh, alamak. So,
Sorry
Baksan,
to
hand
call
it to
you
you.
out again.
Does graying hair outrank no hair, or the other way around?
You expect he mentioned your name, so you have to answer.
Okay. No, I think definitely a lot of caution is necessary. I'm talking about parents, in allowing their children to be exposed to, very, intense violent movies, or movies with violent content, or for that matter, sexual content, because we do not know how the children might perceive it, interpret it, and assimilate it, internalize it. Okay. I think most children will understand that, it's just a movie. All right. And unless they are really binge watching Netflix, for example, and every movie one after another is violent, then of course, that is not advisable. All right. But let's say within a week they're watching one or two movies which happen to have little bit of violent scenes. I think that would be okay. I mean, there was a time when Harry Potter came on, and there are many parents that I know personally banned their kids from watching Harry Potter because they said, "Oh, this is has to do with witchcraft and things like that." So there are parents who can be very cautious, and to some it might be considered overly cautious, because you cannot totally isolate or insulate your children from the world, So I guess it's not for us to tell parents what they can or cannot do, but even if you allow your kids to watch these kind of movies, it's always good to have a conversation with your children after that. All right, somewhere along the way, you need to have a conversation with them to find out what they understand, and whether they might even have certain misconceptions, or have a confusion about what is reality and what is movies. Okay, so I think that conversation is very important. So for parents who just put a tablet in front of their infants or toddlers, for example, all right, at that age, it is the parents who choose the videos. That's fine. Okay, but it can become a habit where you just take things for granted, and eventually when the children are old enough to be able to download their own movies, or turn on YouTube, then you already lose control of what they're watching. Okay, yeah. But on the parenting front, I think harsh punishment. Parents do ask me, is it okay to use the cane? So all I can do is I can't decide for you, but I can share with you what research has found, that caning actually is counterproductive, because the child most likely does not learn the lesson that you want the child to learn, but instead the child learns something else. And one of the things the child might learn, is that it's okay to use violence to get someone else to do what you want them to do, because that's basically what parents do, through caning or through any kind of very severe, harsh punishment. It is a way of getting the children to do what the parents wants them to do. So that's the message, and so that's the only warning I give parents, that if that's your intention, your child can pick it up, and it becomes a lesson for them, it becomes a model for them. And then maybe they start young through bullying their classmates or schoolmates or friends in the neighborhood, and then progress through the years to more severe and serious kinds of aggression.
Right. So that is a form of physical violence as well, right? That will be learned by the child themselves, and we do not want them to internalize that and do it on others, right? And so so the importance of educating other methods of telling our children or teaching our children the right things to do or the right values, right? Yeah.
And I think particularly for boys, and that's why, in Center for Fathering, I'm focusing on raising boys. And that's a new program I'm developing for Center for Fathering. And it has to do with this masculinity thing, the man box, what is called the man box, about, if you're a man, and this is what we tell boys as young as 5 years old. If you're a man, this is what you would do. This is, you wouldn't cry, and you will not give up. You will not, give in to other people and things like that, and you will make a stand. And so there are certain behaviors and certain expectations that boys grew up with, and some of these are subtle and subliminal. It may not be very clear instructions. It may be. And so when they grow up, they tend to suppress their emotions, but any emotions that suppress will eventually come to the surface one way or another. So that's where it becomes dangerous, because you're not in control of how it comes to the surface, right? And so sometimes when you're under a lot of stress, or just it takes the right triggers to trigger off a chain reaction, and then you kind of explode, and that's where you're not in control at all. So this is something we feel that we need to help fathers who have sons to know what to do about these things, and so that they're not sending the wrong unintended messages to their boys who grew up developing and perpetuating this thing called toxic masculinity.
Wow, Maxon, thanks for sharing. So all of us are learning, and definitely. So Hewlett, I think we have discussed, and Saravanan, we have discussed a lot today, and thank you for all your sharing. Maybe from each of you, anything that you want to share and remind men out there, what are the reminders, if they are caught into this action of domestic violence. Yeah, before we end.
Yeah. I will personally like to encourage anybody, okay, who has used violence or is using violence, please come forward. We cannot run a family with fear. We have to run a family with respect, and respect, we can't force it. It has to be earned. Yeah. I think our intention is not to harm our family or the loved ones. But eventually, it becomes the way lah, when we don't know how to express our anger. So please come forward and seek help early. The earlier, the better. Okay, we are not here to judge you. Okay, we want to really partner with you, journey with you to see what we can do for you, or rather say what you can do for yourself. We want to help you to help yourself. Okay, and whatever you're going to do today, okay, is actually the seed that you're going to sow, okay, for your children and for the next generation. Okay, you are the so-called the mirror. Your children are going to watch you, and they're going to grow up with your behaviors, with your characteristics. Okay, so let's do the right things lah. So in summary, seek help early. So
the
call
earlier the
us.
better.
The earlier the better.
Yep.
Okay, so call us if you need help. Okay, if you are not very comfortable calling us, please call any family service center as well. As long as you seek help, we're happy.
Yeah.
Right. Hewlett, what about you? Last
So
words.
I mean I agree with what Sarah said. I think it really takes courage to admit our mistakes, to seek help whenever we think that we've not done well or we've gone wrong, right? And that step of courage is something that we want to model for our fellow brothers, right? Other men around us, younger men, boys, teens. We want to model to them, to the next generation, that it is all right to make mistakes, and it is all right to step forward and say, "I made a mistake. I want to change. I want to do better." And when we do that, we're gonna have a better future for everyone, right? And I think this is where it's right for men to take the lead in this, right? Stepping forward, saying, "I need help, right? Can you help me?" And we'll walk alongside you.
Right, nice one. Thank you very much, Saravanan and Hewlett, for coming on to our podcast. It's really a learning thing. I mean, I feel so, there's a spirit of brotherhood here, you know,
Yeah.
with the four of us coming together and, talking about things that usually we don't talk about. All right, no doubt you guys are professional. You face this every day, but I think at the end of the day, all of us are men. All of us are fathers or fathers to be. We have loved ones that we don't want to hurt, as was mentioned by Saravanan, and we like to have to go through this process. Even don't for the crisis to happen. Go in early, seek help early. We have people who are professional and can take care, right, of your journey along the way. Right. Okay, thank you very much again, and see you again. Hopefully, another occasion. Bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Well, you've been listening to the WADT podcast. Thank you for joining us. If you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us so that you will not miss any future episodes. Also, do let fellow dads know about this podcast. If you would like to react to what you have heard today, just head to one of our social media platforms. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Or you can email us at wearedads2@gmail.com. Also, do let us know what you would like us to discuss in the future podcast episodes. Till the next time, this is Hafiz and Parkson signing off.